The UK's post-Brexit farming subsidy scheme in 2023 is known as the Sustainable Farming Incentive, or SFI. It is a new system of payments to farmers that is designed to support environmental sustainability and productivity, according to the UK government. And the SFI is made up of three main elements. One is environmental land management schemes, or ELMs, and these schemes provide payments for farmers who undertake a range of environmentally beneficial activities, such as improving soil health, reducing pesticide use, and restoring wetlands. Another is higher level stewardship, or HLS. This scheme provides long-term payments to farmers who commit to high standards of environmental management. And another is entry-level stewardship, or ELS. This scheme provides introductory payments to new entrants to farming and those who are starting to implement sustainable practices. Payments under the SFI are based on a system of activity-based payments. This means that farmers are paid for specific actions that they take to improve the environment or their productivity. This is a departure from the previous system of headage payments, which paid farmers a fixed amount per hectare of land, regardless of what they did with it. The SFI is still in its early stages of development, and some farmers have expressed concerns about the complexity of the scheme and the lack of clarity about how payments will be calculated. However, the government is committed, as they say, to making the SFI a success and would be working to address the concerns of farmers. Overall, the SFI is definitely a significant change to the UK's farming subsidy system. It is designed to reward farmers for taking environmentally friendly actions and to support the production of high-quality food if they can. Only time will tell whether the SFI will achieve these goals. The SFI has been criticized for its complexity, bureaucracy, and the lack of clarity about how payments will be calculated, as I said. And there are indeed some key downsides for farmers compared to the UK system while they still were an EU member. The SFI is designed to shift the focus away from direct payments to a more active-based payments, as I said, where farmers are rewarded for taking specific actions to improve the environment or their productivity. And this means that overall payments to farmers are likely to be lower than under the cap. The SFI is a complex system with multiple different schemes, each with its own set of rules and eligibility criteria. And this complexity has led to confusion and frustration among farmers who have found it difficult to understand how they can apply for payments and what they need to do to qualify. The government has not really published a detailed guidance on how the SFI is implemented, which has led to uncertainty among farmers about how much they will receive in payments. And this uncertainty has made it difficult for farmers to plan for the future and has made it harder for them to invest in their businesses. The SFI is more bureaucratic than the CAP, with more paperwork and record-keeping requirements for farmers. So much about the Brussels bureaucracy. And this has added to the burden on farmers and has made it more difficult for them to comply with the rules of the scheme. The UK's departure from the EU has led to increased trade barriers, which has made it more difficult for UK farmers already to export their products to the EU. And this has led to some farmers losing markets for their produce and has put downward pressure on prices. The UK's exit from the EU has also opened up the UK market to cheaper food imports from other countries. And this has put pressure on UK farmers to reduce their costs, which has led to some farmers cutting back on labor and investing less in their businesses. Overall, the downsides for farmers compared to the UK systems while they were an EU member are significant. The reduced direct payments, increased complexity, lack of clarity about payments, increased bureaucracy, reduced market access, and increased competition from abroad have all made it harder for UK farmers to make a living. In addition to these specific downsides, the UK's farming sector is also facing a number of other challenges, such as climate change, labour shortages, and the rising cost of inputs. And the challenges are making it increasingly difficult for UK farmers to produce food efficiently and sustainably. The post-Brexit farming subsidy scheme has failed to improve on the old EU system, and large landowners are still benefiting disproportionately, at least according to the president of the National Farmers Union. In an interview with the Financial Times, Minette Batters, who is due to stand down as president of the union in February, slammed post-Brexit agricultural policy, which has been overseen by 7 different environment ministers since the UK voted to leave the EU in 2016. One of the biggest criticisms of the EU subsidy scheme run as part of the common agricultural policy was that it unfairly benefited large landowners. Brexit was seen as an opportunity for the payment system to be overhauled. But its replacement, the environmental land management schemes, has been slow to be implemented and criticized for placing too much emphasis on the environment at the expense of food production. The focus at the moment is on growing a crop for the environment and not producing food. I think that's going to be really hard with the cost of living crisis, said Batters, adding that consumers cared more than ever about food security. She went on to criticize the government for failing to build a more equitable system. Large landowners effectively living off the state is not going to wash going forward, said Batters. And while the new scheme differs from the EU system in that funding is awarded in exchange for environmental actions, public money for public goods, so to speak, this system is still area-based. Access to land is a prerequisite to access the scheme, and the more land a farmer has, the more funds they will be able to secure. The phase-out of the EU basic payment scheme has left many farmers who were reliant on the subsidies with lower payments than they had previously. And meanwhile, take-up of the flagship payment under the ELMs, the Sustainable Farming Incentive, has been low, with only a fraction of the 82,000 farmers who are eligible having signed up. At the end of the day, farmers knew what they were getting with the basic payment scheme, said Minette Batters, who, as I said, will step down as president in February after 5 years in this role, and she's referring here to EU subsidies. Whether you liked it or not, it was the only way for us to manage our risk, she says. EU-style payments are currently being phased out, with farmers receiving smaller sums yearly from 2021 to 2027. The replacement schemes, which only apply to farmers in England, are designed to reward farmers for restoring the natural environment and adopting sustainable farming practices such as soil management. And speaking to the Financial Times in a recent interview, Shadow Environment Secretary Steve Reed said that Labour would not rip it up and start again, but that the system could work better. If we want to incentivize landowners and farmers to behave in certain ways, and they had compensation for that previously, then they need that compensation to continue, he said. The Country Land and Business Association, which represents landowners and rural businesses, has been more supportive of the scheme, but has said that doomspeak was dissuading farmers from signing up. We have taken agricultural home for the first time in 40 years, said CLA President Victoria Vivian, referring to the UK's exit from the EU Common Agricultural Policy. It's obviously going to be difficult and complicated, but the general direction is good and productive in her view. The NFU has called on all parties ahead of the next general election to commit to domestic production targets to offer security to farmers who are struggling with high production costs and the biggest shake-up in agricultural policy since 1947. The group said the government should set and report on food production targets in the same way it sets environmental targets, and that food was a key priority for voters going into the next election. A poll of 2,135 adults in England and Wales commissioned by the group found that 84% of people surveyed think food production targets are either as or more important than environmental targets. Farmers will vote for whoever has a credible plan for food production, said Betters. And the biggest point here I have to emphasize is the whole point of Brexit, the Brexit claims, was to get rid of all the EU bureaucracy. The cap is a kindergarten game compared to the new regulation in the UK. Just saying. And if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.